Welcome to Downshift, my name is Matt, and this is the newly updated BMW X5. This one specifically is the M60i, and that has a new meaning in a more diverse lineup than ever. This is the best X5 I've ever tested, but nothing is perfect, so today, thanks to our friends at International BMW, we're hitting the highlights, the best and the rest, starting with the rest. The first thing we're going to talk about is price, which is a little bit difficult to discuss because this new M60i version doesn't so easily stack up against the Mercedes or the Audi, but we are going to talk about that a little bit more. But for now, we're going to talk about price against its closest competitors. This X5 M60i starts at a whopping $89,300. The GLE 53 AMG starts at a whole $11,000 less at $78,100. But that's a straight 6 versus the twin-turbo V8. So let's compare to the GLE 580, which is a more comparable twin-turbo V8. And that is a much more comparable price as well at $85,000. And then there's the Audi SQ8, which is kind of a competitor here, but the Q8 is a weird fit within the lineup. This is kind of its Audi's Halo SUV. Anyway, the SQ8 starts at $95,500, and according to the Audi website, you can't buy an RSQ8 right now. So I think something weird is going on there. We're not used to seeing the BMW cost more than the Mercedes. However, when you compare it to the 53, you're not getting the V8 that you get here. And if you compare it to the 580, you're not getting all the AMG comparable M stuff that you get here. So this X5 M60 is certainly more car than either of those GLEs and the Audi as well. Number two is just some light naming confusion. This LCI year for the X5 really shakes things up. You've got at least a mild hybrid on everything in the lineup now, and the PHEVs are even more robust, etc. But there's some confusion at the sporty end of the lineup with the M's here. Last year you could get an X5 M50, which brought great power and speed with the addition of the 4.4 twin-turbo V8. From there you jump up to the X5M, and everyone knew exactly what that meant. S designation M engine, reworked suspension, diffs, etc. From there you could squeeze out a little bit more performance with the X5M Competition. But for 2024 there's a big change. There's the X5 M60 that we have here, and then a straight jump to the X5M Competition. And that's because almost no one was buying the X5M non-comp. So now the X5 M60 slots in between the old M50i and the base M. But it gets the big engine upgrade we'll talk about later. But in case any of you were wondering why there's no more M50 and there's no more M, that's why. And third and finally, we're going to talk about some small nitpicks here and there. We've kind of lumped them all into one thing because there's small things that aren't make or breaks or anything objectively wrong with the vehicle, but just small things that I noticed that maybe aren't ideal. The first being that your custom ambient light is kind of only available in comfort mode. When you switch into sport, the ambient lighting will go red, and when you switch into eco, it'll go blue. So in an individual or comfort mode is where you're going to be able to enjoy your custom ambient light setting. And then just like last year, you have a heated steering wheel. However, they've moved the button off of the steering wheel and into the screen, which still functions the same way, but it's a little annoying. And lastly, this is just a weird thing, and we'll talk about it more in the trunk, but you cannot fold the rear seats from the trunk. You have to go up to the rear seats themselves to fold them down. But that's it. Those are the only things that I could ding this X5 on. It's marginally more expensive than a GLE 580, but it is a lot more performance. The same thing with the Audi. And the naming convention is a little confusing, but again, once you start to understand, it really kind of makes sense. And then there's a couple little nitpicks, but that means that there's a lot of good stuff going on here, so let's talk about that. Number one, we have to start with the engine because it's actually a really big deal. The new M50i now gets the S68 True M engine. It's a familiar layout, 4.4 twin-turbo V8, but now it's got a 48-volt mild hybrid system integrated into it to help fuel economy, but it also has a fun little trick. If you hold the downshift paddle, you'll enter sprint mode, which will dump an extra 40 electric horsepower into your system for about 10 seconds of added pace. The electric energy is then almost immediately recouped when you get on the brakes, and you can do it again almost instantly. Amazing. It is quick and it is sharp. But anyway, yes, we have a true M engine under the hood of the M60 here. So you could remove the 60i badge from the back and call it an M, and I wouldn't badge shame you. The M60i is obviously detuned compared to the M Competition, though. Here you're making 523 horsepower and 553 pound-feet. Not numbers to scoff at, of course. And that's good enough to do 0 to 60 in about 4.1 seconds, allegedly less than half a second slower than the M Competition. And number two, we're going to talk about the new look. Now, last year, we spent some time in the X5M competition, and I said in that video that I think the X5 is probably the most handsome midsize SUV that you can buy. And now this year, there's been some serious updates, and I think that statement still holds true. Starting up front, you have an entirely new front fascia. Your lower fascia is revised to add some cooling, and you get some additional black accenting that almost bleeds into the bottom of the grille. One thing that I like about the X5 versus the X6 is that your middle splitter is still body colored versus the X6, it'll be all black. And then you have a revised grille with your M logo in it, which we talked about earlier, and it's surrounded in a satin finish rather than a gloss finish. And then moving out from there, you have your revised running lights, which are more of a triangle chevron design, which look really cool and aggressive. And for your M Sport package, you get a tinted housing for it. And then, I love this color. This car is draped in the Tanzanite Blue 2 paint option. It looks fantastic, especially with polarized sunglasses on. And you get new wheel options here. The smallest wheel that you can get is 20 inches, but here you've got the upgraded 22-inch wheels. And then you've got blue brake calipers peeking out from behind, and you have your typical front fender grille. And then up from there you have your M wing mirrors, as this is more M than not. And your profile is largely the same as last year with that interesting body line that humps over the rear wheel. I think it looks really cool. And the rear design is updated with new taillights, and the taillights pulse with the blinker. And you have quad-ish tips. Overall, I really like the look, especially in this Tanzanite Blue 2 paint color with the black. It's kind of incognito a little bit, and I do like the fact that you do get a body color front splitter on the 5 versus the 6. It's a handsome SUV. And then number three, we're going to talk about the new interior design. The face and the rump of the car aren't the only places to get updated. Your cabin is now the latest and greatest from BMW. Of course, the big story is the addition of iDrive 8 with its massive dual screens. And they put almost everything in the screens, including wireless CarPlay, some of the best 360 cameras in the business, and you do have cool ambient light, though not as cool as Mercedes, and there's the whole drive mode thing we talked about earlier. But another thing they've put in the screen are the climate controls. To me, this isn't a huge deal. They're executed pretty well. They're always on screen and you can get to them. But now your heated steering wheel button is in the screen, which is a little bit annoying because it was directly on the wheel. But from a design perspective, a lot has changed as well. And it looks a lot like the X7's interior we're very familiar with now. One of my favorite things is the illuminated dash design. On the M60 here and the M competition, it says M on the dash. In all other versions, it'll just say X5. But you've also got crystal for your start-stop button, your driver selector tab thing, and your iDrive wheel. And of course, my favorite, the M steering wheel is near perfect. It looks incredibly modern and very high-tech and really nice in here, especially with all this carbon fiber. And then number four is the drive. I half expected this based on what we read on paper, but this is probably the best driving mid-size SUV that you can get. Maybe the Cayenne for a trim or two to rival this, but other than that, I really mean it here. And I mean that in relation to the other M competition version as well. The thing I like about this M60i version is that it has a more realistic view of who the buyer and driver is going to be, and it has a more self-aware view of what it is as a vehicle. At the end of the day, this is a mid-size luxury SUV, and most buyers are going to drive it like that. They don't really want the super harsh and stiff M damper thing. What they want is the power, straight line speed, and sound from the M engine with the suspension from the normal X5. And that's a balance that's struck really, really well here. You've got all the power and drama from the M engine, the S68. You've got crisp and snappy shifts from your ZF8 speed, but even with the upgraded 22-inch wheels that we have here, you're not beat up on these horrific West Allis streets. And I don't mean to suggest that this thing can't stiffen up and hit a racetrack. I definitely think it can. It's got the damper refinement and the chassis balance and stability to do it, but this thing will also shine day to day, even when you have a sleeping infant or a motion-sick dog in your back seat. It's absolutely the sweet spot as far as I'm concerned here in this M60i. Okay, we just spent a lot of time talking about how fast and dramatic this thing is, but sometimes you just want your BMW to be a luxury product, and this one very much is. You've got heated and cooled seats, of course, and you've got the optional 8-way massage here if you want. You've got the heated steering wheel that we talked about, and you can even get heated armrests. Super cool. You've got a Harman Kardon sound system as base, but you can upgrade to the crazy Bowers & Wilkins 4D audio. And then there's my favorite thing, a panoramic roof, but not just a panoramic roof. You can get the Sky Lounge roof that's embedded with LEDs to simulate something similar to the Rolls-Royce Ghost Starry Night headliner we just saw. I mean, this is a really nice place to spend time, whether you're driving super hard or if you just want to casually bop about. And then there's the trunk, which also has some cool stuff going on. First of all, it's nice and big. The plug-in hybrid will have a smaller trunk because they have to put the battery someplace, but on the whole, it's nice and big. The seats do fold, but like we said, not from the back, annoying. But your trunk floor also comes up, which is pretty normal, and you have a secret cubby, but the cool thing is that you have a strut that will hold up the trunk floor, which I've never seen before, and is certainly overkill, but kinda cool. And also, since you have air suspension, you can lower the rear end to put heavy stuff in here easier. And of course, I love the fact that you have the split opening tailgate, and you can tow up to 7,200 pounds with this thing. Pretty impressive. And then finally, we'll talk about the rear seats. And they're a touch smaller than the GLE's back seats, but they're still absolutely big enough for myself and other humans over 6 feet. They're spacious enough for legroom and absolutely spacious enough for the headroom. And I love the fact that the pano roof brings in all that light. There's also great leathers and other materials back here, and you have the fancy stitching. And of course, your rear seats can be heated, which we have here, and you get your own climate zone back here, and some shades. And of course, you can get the travel screen thing where you can mount your iPad and plug it in right into the back of the front seat. Very clever. This is a really cool place to spend time, especially at night with the Sky Lounge roof lit up and doing crazy stuff. Really cool. So that's the best and the rest of the newly updated BMW X5. It's a brilliant mid-size SUV and very probably at the top of the heap, but you are going to pay for it. If you're interested in all of the features tested in depth, check out our companion video to this. We'll have it linked in the description below. And thanks again to our friends at International BMW for letting us have a go in this new X5 M60. We'll see you in the next one.